Hi guys, it's MIna. Welcome back. Several of you have been asking how I actually mix my paint. So I want to show you today. We're going to go from start to finish and then we're going to do a pour. I have several different kinds of paint. I have a Liquitex Basics, I have a DecoArt, I have an Artist's Loft, that's another DecoArt, and I have a Folk Art and another Artist's Loft. So we're going to mix a whole bunch of different colors and you'll see how I do it, and then we will pour. So it's chilly today. The first thing I do is I count how many colors I have. So one, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to mix these two. So that's 5, but then I usually want an extra cup of white. So that's 6 cups. So I get my 6 cups out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, I think I'm just going to do 6 because it's not a very big canvas. So there's our 6 cups. So the very first thing I do, this is Liquitex Gloss Medium and Varnish. I decant it from the 1 gallon tub into 2 half-gallon, these are old coffee creamer jars. Depending on how much I paint that week, that's how long it lasts. But this is the Liquitex Gloss Medium and Varnish. So this is a 16-ounce cup. There's a line right here. That's 2 ounces right there. So I'm going to go ahead and put 2 ounces of Liquitex Gloss Medium and Varnish in each of these cups. Okay, so that's 2 ounces. Now, the paint. So as you play with different kinds and different brands of paint, you'll start to figure out how thick or how thin they are. Liquitex is generally pretty thick, so I know that, and I'm going to be using less paint here than I would say of this thinner craft paint, the Folk Art one. Okay, so can't shake this up obviously. Open it. I'm going to give it a good squirt. I'm aiming for about 1 ounce, so it's about half the amount that's in there. Pretty good. Okay, so that's that one. Let's do our Artist's, oh sorry, this is Liquitex Basics Dioxizine Purple. This one is Artist's Loft Ultramarine Blue. Same thing. This is a little thinner than the Liquitex, so I might need a tiny bit more paint than that, but probably not. I'm still going to use about 1 ounce. Okay, that's that one. So DecoArt 24 karat gold, DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics in 24 karat gold. I'm going to pour about 1 ounce. If it's slightly more, it's not the end of the world. Okay. Okay. So the Artist's Loft and the Satin Enamels, I do the Artist's Loft first. Okay. Artist's Loft. Okay. Now, a lot of people who are using a paint just for a base coat, they don't bother putting the pouring medium in there. It would be just Floetrol, but because I'm going to use it in my pour as well, I want the pouring medium in there. Okay, so then I take my Artist's Loft Pure White. This is a new jar. Take the lid off. Now, I want to show you something because this is important. Everybody talks about magic cell maker, cloud maker, and I think this is the reason why. If you get in here, you see there's a layer of oil on the very top. It's a much oilier consistency, and then when I stir it up, you see the actual paint. So I think it's that oil that's creating all of our magic cells and clouds. And so when you open a new jar of this, you definitely want to stir it up. You don't want to just pour that top layer that's separated into your cup. Okay, so that's all combined now. We'll bring our cup back over, and I'm just going to pour. Okay, so that's good for that one. Okay, and then last but not least, we have our Folk Art Treasure Gold. And this one is antique copper. This is the one that was purple, but supposed to be copper. But, okay, so I'm going to shake it up. pretty good. This is a 4-ounce jar. Feels like there's probably about 3 ounces in here left. So there's probably 3 ounces in here. I'm going to put 2 ounces in the cup. So it's going to be, the rest of these has all been like a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 ounces of pouring medium and 1 ounce of paint. The Artist Loft has more paint in it. I don't know what the ratio on that. But this one I'm going to do about a 1-to-1 ratio. So more paint in this one than in these, because it's thinner. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. So if we line these up, you can look at the level. See, this is the Liquitex Basics. We started with 2 ounces, and now it's there. Okay. Then this one is the gold, and it's a little higher than that because I've put more paint in than in the Liquitex Basics. I've put more paint. Again, this is about the same as the DecoArt. This is the Ultramarine Blue from Artist Loft, and then this one is that Folk Art. So the white is a little different just because sometimes I do this. I pour a lot of the Artist Loft and I pour a lot of this, and then I put the Floetrol in, and then sometimes I'll pour some of it out and use that as the flow extender or the background, the base coat. So let's start with that one. So I'm going to mix those two. This is the Artist Loft and the Satin Enamels. These two. Artist Loft Flow Acrylic, Satin Enamels in pure white. And we're just going to stir those two until it's all combined. Okay, so see, that's all combined now. Can you see how thick that is? I'm leaving a mound on a mound. Yeah? Okay. So now we're going to add our Floetrol. This is a brand new bottle of Floetrol. I have not used this one before. Shake it up really good. Okay, so what I have done to this is the pantyhose. Cut a little square of pantyhose. Secure it to the top of the bottle with a rubber band. Makes a beautiful filter. You don't have to worry about Floetrol boogers or dried bits or anything like that. And the Floetrol flows right through there. And you can keep your lid on it. So, all right. So this is, that's 2 ounces. So this is probably 4 ounces of paint right here to this line. So when the Floetrol was thick, I used to just add about 6 ounces and stir and then add a little bit more. But when the Floetrol was thinner, that screwed me up a lot. And I stopped using an actual recipe and started checking the consistency. And what I've been doing is adding the Floetrol about an ounce, ounce and a half at a time in little bits, so I can control much better how thin or how thick my mix becomes. So to this, because I know both of those are not, they're not as thick as Golden's or Liquitex Basics, I'm not going to need a ton of full Floetrol. So here we go. Let's pour some of this in here. Start with that. So that's probably 4 ounces, maybe 3.5 ounces. We were here and now we're up to here. So we're going to stir this up. And combine all of that Floetrol. Floetrol will change the color of your paint just momentarily for a couple, like a minute or two, until it's all sort of incorporated and the air bubbles all pop. Okay, so this is pretty good now. It's still a little thick, leaving a big mound. So I'm going to add a little bit more Floetrol. This seems to be a nice thick creamy bottle, which is awesome. Those thin ones were driving me nuts. But it taught me something, you know. It taught me not to depend on a recipe. It taught me to figure out which consistency I liked and work towards that. Okay, so that's much better. Okay, so it's leaving a little mound on a mound, but you see how it's pouring nicely off of the stick? Okay, so that's our white. Okay, Liquitex Basics, Dioxizine Purple. I'm going to mix those two up. Somebody had asked me about plastic cups, and the reason that I use plastic cups, I do use paper cups also. I have smaller ones. The 5-ounce Dixie cups are paper, and I have a 9 ounce or 7 ounce that I use also. But I use the 16-ounce ones in a plastic cup because I keep this paint for 2 or 3 days, sometimes 2 or 3 pours, because it's a lot of paint. I don't use 16, 32, 48. I don't use 65 ounces of paint on a 16 by 20. So this lasts a few days, and if I kept it in a paper cup, the paper cup would get soft and mushy and start to disintegrate. And I don't use glass cups for storing my paint because it takes a long time to wash those, and I don't have that kind of time. So I do use borosilicate cups when I pour. I do wash those every time, but these cups get reused. I mean, they're used for 3 or 4 days for 3 or 4 pours. So okay, let's go ahead and add our Floetrol now. See where our line is. Right about there. And this is very thick. This is still, like, it's not even not pouring. Actually, at this point, I'm going to add a tiny bit of water to this. Just a little bit. I think that was not a little bit. Okay, just a little bit. That's probably about a teaspoon. And I'm going to stir that up. So now it's still not, but it's much looser. Okay, so now I'm going to add the Floetrol in here. This is where it is, right there. So that's probably 3 ounces. So I'm going to add 3 or 4 ounces of Floetrol. There. And we're going to stir that. I should be wearing gloves. I'm going to put on my gloves. Sorry. If you forget, it's okay, but when you remember, correct it. Okay. Scrape the sides, scrape the bottom. So now all of a sudden we have paint. Whee! But it's still too thick. It's taking a long time before it comes off the stick. So this is more like what my normal recipe is we had 2 ounces of pouring medium, 1 ounce of paint, and at this one I have actually added about 10 ounces of Floetrol because now we're at the 13 ounce mark and it's full. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so the purple is done. 24 karat gold. This is 3 ounces at this point. So we're going to stir that up. So that's all really well combined. Okay, thick. Now we add our Floetrol. I'm not going to add a ton, probably about, I don't know, we'll see. Okay, so that's probably 6 ounces, 5 ounces. It's about 2 to 1 to the Floetrol, to the paint for the DecoArt. Okay. Perfect. You don't want your metallics too thin because then they'll get lost. It'll be a shiny layer on top of everything instead of an actual ribbon of color. Okay, this is the Artist's Loft Ultramarine Blue. Okay, so that's 2 ounces of pouring medium and about 1 ounce of paint. Stir that up. There's a lot of crows around here lately. Have you noticed that? Okay. Oop. Okay.
Crows are very smart.
Yes, crows are very smart.
They like to come and watch you paint, probably.
I don't think so. Okay, so that's about 3 ounces. We're going to add our Floetrol now.
It's probably because of all the 24 karat gold paint you use.
That's funny right there. Okay, so this is the Artist's Loft Ultramarine Blue. Not bad. Still seems a bit thick. I'm going to add a little bit more Floetrol because the Floetrol's thick. Yay! Thank you, Floetrol, for making it correctly. Okay. So you notice this color has changed a bit. Right there. Then that's what I was talking about earlier when I said the Floetrol will change your colors for a little bit until it all sort of settles down. It will come back to this color and it'll dry this color. But when it's in the cup, it can throw you off the first time. I remember when I first started painting, I had this cadmium red deep hue. And it was like this dark, deep, luscious red. It was so beautiful. And then I poured some Floetrol in there and all of a sudden it was pink. And I was like, wait, what? I was so upset. But it dried red. Okay, so there's our blue. Leaving a mound on a mound. Okay, now we go on to the Folk Art Treasure Gold Antique Copper. Look how weird that is. Okay, so it's like purple and copper and very strange. Okay. You should call this stuff Mess With You paint. It does look really coppery here though. I'll show you. Straight the sides, incorporate all that into the pouring medium. So the pouring medium, where is it? I put it down there. The Liquitex Gloss Medium in Varnish. The reason that you use that that I use it in addition to the Floetrol is because it has polymers in it that bind to your paint and allow it to create all these beautiful effects. It also has an elasticity to it that allows your paint to stretch without breaking or cracking. So I like the pouring medium. I use it. I think it gives the dried result a nice gloss. If you use the gloss medium in varnish, it's got varnish in it already, so it dries with a beautiful luster. Even if you use the one without the varnish, it still dries very nicely. Maybe not quite as lustery, but it's a beautiful finish. You don't see the weave of the canvas if you use the pouring medium in there. It's a whole bunch of reasons. Okay, so now we do our Floetrol. So this one, now that it's combined with the pouring medium, this was 1:1 ratio instead of 2:1. See, it's still very thin-ish. So I don't want to add a ton of Floetrol to this right off the bat. I want to add a little bit at a time to see. Okay, so that's like 3 ounces. And if it's the consistency that I want it to be when I'm done with just putting that much in, that's how much paint I got. So now this is better. It's still not too thin, but it's leaving a little mound on a mound. So I think I'm just gonna add a tiny bit more, and that's it. That was maybe 1/2 ounce. And you will figure out the consistency that you like as you keep painting. Paint, if you can, every day, especially now. You know, you don't need the pouring medium, absolutely. You can use just Floetrol to mix your paints. That's fine. A lot of people do that. I like the effects that I get from the gloss medium and varnish. Okay, so we have our Folk Art Treasured Gold Antique Copper. We have the Ultramarine Blue, DecoArt 24 Karat Gold, Liquitex Basics Dioxizine Purple, and the Artist's Loft White mixed with the Satin Enamels White. Okay, so let me move all this out of the way and I will be right back and we'll do the pour. Okay? Okay, so we've got our area cleaned up. Let's go ahead and layer our cup and then we're going to pour onto a canvas. So, I'm curious to see what happens if we do a straight pour. A dirty cup straight pour with all of this. So, and again, checking your consistency before you actually start to pour. It's still good. It hasn't thickened up, leaving a mound on a mound on a mound. It's great. Okay, so I'm going to put about 1/3 of a cup of the purple in. I'm going to put some gold. Okay. From up high into the center. Okay, I'm going to come in with the Ultramarine Blue from Artist's Loft. Artist's Loft. I keep saying Artist's Loft. Okay, Ultramarine Blue. I'm going to use some of the Folk Art Treasured Gold. This one was in Fireflies at Dusk that we did. It was really pretty color. Okay, so I don't want to use too much white in here because I don't want it to dull down everything. So I'm only going to put a very, very small dollop in right now. And I'm going to do another layer of colors. just a little bit of purple, a lot more blue, another shot of gold. You want it to sink down. You want it to go underneath that layer. Another layer of purple, of the antique copper. Now I'm going to put a layer of white in again. Okay. So, that's ready to go. I have a lot of white. I think I want to use that as a base coat. So I'm going to thin this down. So this is the consistency that we had, a mound on a mound on a mound. Since I'm going to use it for a base coat, I'm going to pour water directly in here. It's probably about an ounce. And I'm going to stir this to combine it really well. It's still a little thick for a base coat. So I'm going to add some more water. So I've added about 2 ounces of water at this point. And see, it's not leaving a mound anymore. Now it's just barely sinking when it hits the surface. Okay, and you want your base coat. Actually, I'm going to add still a bit more water. The last time, the pour we did yesterday, the DecoArt test, I was like, oh, this is going so well. And then I'm watching the video and I'm realizing I never thinned out the base coat, and the gold was really thick. And as the paint was like rolling, it was eating itself because the base coat wasn't thin. Okay, so that's good now. Grab my spatula real quick. Okay, so we're gonna pour the base coat down on the canvas. It's nice and watery-ish. But it's moving really easy, it's spreading really easy. It's not going to leave any lines on our canvas underneath our pour. You hear the birdies singing. Spring is here, happy first day of spring. Such an exciting time. World is a little bit crazy right now, but I love spring. See all these flower trees, squirrel up there.
Squirrel.
Wow, that was a long time ago. I've grown since then. Maybe not. Okay, probably not. All right, I'm gonna give that a quick torch. Get any air bubbles out because we haven't got the sun hitting us today, which is nice. Okay. So you can see that's nice and moving easy. I do want to keep some paint on there though. I don't want it to be super, super tight across the thing right now. Make sure everything's covered. All right. So we may or may not use this entire cup depending. We'll see. See how it goes. We're going to do a straight pour from up high. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a second because there's no white in the center and I want white in the center. So I'm just going to take some of this that's thinned out and go from right up high into the middle. And now we're going to keep pouring. I think we're going to stop there because that's a lot of paint on here and I don't want to have too much. So I still have probably 5 or 6 ounces of paint in there, but that's okay. All right, let's torch this real quick. So one thing I have realized recently, more recently, especially with a straight pour, you want to give the cells a minute or so to develop and to come up and to work their way from the bottom. What we've done is when we poured this from up high, paint is falling from way up here all the way to down there, and as it falls, gravity churns it and mixes it and aerates it and gets all these lovely little air bubbles in it, which as they hit the canvas then become cells. So we need to give them time to come up. So you are probably getting cells if you're doing a straight pour. The second thing I've noticed is they get tilted off really easy. So be cognizant of that. Be cognizant of how much paint you're putting on your canvas so that you're stretching what you have versus dumping off a lot of it. Now, I'm not perfect. I've had videos where I've used way too much paint. It happens. That's how we learn. That's how we grow, is by learning, by doing. So you see these cells are developing a lot more now. I'm actually going to torch it one more time. See them? Okay. Okay. Let's tilt this. This is looking good. I see the white around the outside. The flow extender is there on our base coat, so that's good. So we have cells in here, and we have satin enamels in here. That white has satin enamels in it. So we're going to kind of go back and forth a little bit and let those cells just kind of go swimming and go back and forth. Because every time we go back and forth, they're going to grow a little bit and get a little bit bigger. And we're also stretching out our paint. There is actually too much paint on here still. So we are going to tilt off some of it. But what I've noticed is I tend to keep the center. So I'm concerned with what's happening in here right now. And that's where I'm growing those pretty cells, which is cool. Squirrel! I'm gonna go off that edge now. And bring it back to the center. Come down this way so it's in the middle. He's mad about something. Okay, I'm gonna go off that side now. Okay, come back to the center. We're gonna go down that edge. Okay. Back up toward the middle and then go down towards the center, toward that corner. Okay. So, recenter our paint. Let's look at this for a second. There's still a little bit too much paint on here, but this is the time when we look at it and we decide, do I like this? Do I like what's happening? Do I not like what's happening? Was this a good technique to do? Was this the right paint to use for that technique? This is when you ask yourself those questions, because if you're going to change something, now would be the best time. It's interesting. I know that this will dry better and dry cool because we have that DecoArt antique copper, which does produce really cool effects when it's drying, and you can see it in here. Actually, I see the antique copper a lot more in this pour than I have before in the other times that I've used it. I don't know if I'm crazy about this though. I mean, it's cool. It's very interesting. I got some interesting stripy cells through there. There's a little bit of white in the center. There's a lot of cells happening. There's some pretty swirly things going on. I'm just not crazy about this circle that seems to be around there. I think I want to pour what's left in my cup on top of that, but I'm going to put some more white in there. And maybe some more blue. Okay, and just a tiny bit of gold. Okay. And we're going to do it again. Stop there. That's better because I have more white in it. So the white is really interesting. White is actually not one of my favorite colors. But I have learned that white is very important for contrast. If I take a beautiful blue and a beautiful purple and I put them next to each other, they're cool looking. But because they're close, it's not visually hitting your eye with like a wow factor. Whereas if you put some white or some gold or a very contrasty color in between those two, all of a sudden you get that wow factor. You get that pop that you were missing before. I'm letting that develop for 1 second. I'm going to take my skewer and just kind of fix the center in sort of a swirl. Not anything major, that's it. Okay, let's torch it. Okay. A lot of cells coming up, which is awesome. Very cool. All right, let's tilt this baby a little bit. I think maybe I went back and forth a little bit too many times last time. We're gonna go down off that corner first because I want to open up this blue and white. Okay, come back to the middle, in the center. Now we're gonna go down off that side. Back to the middle. Okay. Now we're going to go down off this edge. Down that side now. Very cool. All right. Okay. Let's look at it for a second. Ah! No, get away! Go, get out here. He's hopping. I think it'll be okay. Okay, so do we like this better? Yes, I do like this better. I think that the white and the blue make a big difference in bringing in that contrast. This is pretty cool. It's kind of like a, like some idiot dripped in it. But you know what? You gotta forgive yourself. You gotta laugh. You can fix it. It's not the end of the world. Wipe your hands. Okay, when that happens, is take a skewer. Just kind of follow the natural line. Okay. Okay, there we go. I'm going to torch it one more time, and I think we're going to be done. Ah! Another bug. Ah! Go! Get out of here! Scram! Jeez Louise. Okay. Leave that one like that, and I will show you when it's dry. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope I answered some of your questions and demystified how I use it and why I use what. There was one other thing I wanted to mention was what's the difference between Floetrol and pouring medium? Okay, pouring medium actually has polymers in it that bind to your paint and help you create beautiful effects. Floetrol is a paint conditioner. It was developed for use in paint sprayers to keep the nozzle from clogging. So it was never actually meant to be a pouring medium. And I think there was actually a shortage of pouring medium, and somebody figured out they could use Floetrol, and a lot of people have been doing that. And that's fine. Floetrol is a great product. I love it. I use it all the time. I don't particularly love it when I use it just by itself, because one of the things that I notice, if I get pretty cells and whatever with Floetrol by itself, they're gorgeous, and then I come back 2 hours later and they've just continued to grow and to get bigger and to stretch because there's no polymers binding them and keeping their shape, which is one of the things that the pouring medium does. It does have polymers in it that bind to your paint and help you keep your effects that you created. So these cells that are in there are going to stay. They're going to make it a little bit bigger, but they're going to pretty much stay just like this because of the pouring medium that's in there. It's almost like a gluey. You can use glue. I have used glue. I did use glue a lot in the beginning when I first started, and I used silicone, but I don't like cleaning silicone off paintings. So, and I can get cells without silicone. So that's what I do. Anyways, I will show you this one when it's dry. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Stay safe. Take care of each other. Be kind. I'll see you soon. Hi guys, it's MIna back again. So I've been waiting for sun and we haven't had any. So this one is pretty much dry, but I wanted to get the video out to you guys tomorrow, so we needed to shoot this part today. Came out pretty cool, actually. I love all those rings that happened, even though this wasn't a ring pour, even though it was a straight pour. You got some really beautiful lines. So this one is that Treasure Gold series, the antique copper. And I think you can kind of see, I saw it earlier this morning when there was actually like, oh, there's a little bit, oh, there, maybe that's gold. But like there, you can sort of see the copper and the purple. It came out pretty cool. So this one was a straight pour. This was the paints that we mixed on camera. The Ultramarine Blue, the Dioxizine Purple, and that antique copper. The Satin Enamels white with the Artist Loft, and the 24 karat gold. Came out pretty cool. I like this one. Reminds me of like water droplets. Pretty neat stuff. Then we have one triangular cell. This is funny. I love that blue though. Ultramarine blue is one of my favorite colors. It's one of the first ones I got, one of those big huge tubs of Liquitex paint. I used it in everything. It was great. But it's nice because it's also a transparent, so cells pop through it. Like we have 2 little gold cells, 3 gold cells. So cool stuff. So I wish we had sun, but that's okay. Anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope that you enjoyed this one and you have a little bit more understanding of how I actually mix my paints. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to answer for you. Thank you so much, you guys. I will see you for the next one. Have an awesome day. Stay safe. Bye.